What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop, and you probably know what we're doing by now, to be honest. Last week we went ahead and started covering facts on every single Kalos Pokemon as a part of our Generational Facts series where we have been covering facts on every single Pokemon, and well, today we are going to be covering facts on the second half of the Kalos Pokedex. Of course, just like I said in the last video, the Kalos Pokedex is the shortest Pokedex we've ever seen, and so therefore we only have 36 facts to cover today, but we have some very interesting Pokemon to cover, like Xerneas, Yveltal, Zygarde, and a bunch more, so why don't you go ahead and just kick back, relax, and get ready to hear some awesome facts about the second half of the Kalos Pokedex. Okay, starting the video off with Enkei, an ironic fact about Enkei is that it is the very first Dark-type Pokemon to be owned by a main antagonist in the anime, that would be James, even though the Dark-type is also known as the Evil type in Japan. With its evolution Malamar, the very first move that Malamar learns by level up is Reversal, which is most likely a direct reference to its evolution method, where the orientation of the 3DS as well as its own body are reversed upon evolution. Moving on to one of my least favorite Pokemon, we have Binacle, but that's not actually the fact here because what we have here about Binacle is actually much more interesting. Binacle is actually the favorite Pokemon of Tomoaki Imakuni, and you might have heard that last name before because Imakuni is a rather eccentric individual who has been associated with the Pokemon franchise through the anime as well as the trading card game, and he's even appeared on a couple of different TCG cards over the years as well. According to Barbaricle's Pokedex entries, when they evolve, 2 Binacle multiply into 7. They fight with the power of 7 Binacle. Barbaricle's legs and hands have minds of their own, and they will move independently, but they usually follow the head's orders. So basically what the Pokedex is trying to say here is that Barbaricle is actually just 7 Binacle formed into this monstrosity of a Pokemon, and frankly I don't think I have heard of anything more terrifying. Moving on to Skrelp and its evolution Dragalge are actually the only poison-type Pokemon that were introduced in Generation 6. Now, if you're anything like me, you might have wondered in the past why Dragalge got the Poison Dragon typing when there's another Dragon-type Pokemon introduced in the Kalos region that seems like it would be way better for that type in Gudra, seeing as how it's not only purple but it's also gooey as well. However, Dragalge actually has a very good reason for being the Poison Dragon type, because not only is it based on the leafy sea dragon, it is also partially based on seaweed, and seaweed when it starts to rot is known to release highly toxic gas, which can cause poisonings, therefore explaining the Poison Dragon type. According to Clauncher's Ultra Sun Dex entry, its claws occasionally fall off, and it keeps a low profile until they grow back. The meat of its claws is so delicious. Now, obviously, this Pokedex entry is another example of how people in the Pokemon world actually eat Pokemon, and to be honest with you, I don't need another example of that. Please keep that away from me. According to its evolution Clawitzer's Y Pokedex entry, by expelling water from the nozzle in the back of its claw, it can move at a speed of 60 knots. Now, it's kind of interesting how it says 60 knots instead of something like 60 miles per hour, but this is actually a very specific reference because a knot is a unit of speed which equals 1 nautical mile per hour, which is just over 1 mile per hour, but is an obvious reference to its water type. Moving on to Helioptile, Helioptile is actually the only non-grass type Pokemon that evolves with the use of a Sunstone. And upon evolving into its evolution Heliolisk, no other Pokemon actually has the same type combination of Electric Normal as Heliolisk or its pre-evolution Helioptile. And speaking of unique type combinations, no other Pokemon has the same type combination of Rock Dragon as Tyrunt or its evolution Tyrantrum. And according to Tyrantrum's Ultra Sun Dex entry, complete restoration is impossible, allowing room for theories that its entire body was once covered in a feather-like coat. Now, this is actually a very clever reference to the fact that scientists have discovered that dinosaurs are actually more closely related to modern birds than they are reptiles, and they also believe that dinosaurs such as the beloved T-Rex that Tyrantrum is based on actually had feather-like coats, much like it is described in Tyrantrum's Pokedex entry. Moving on to the other fossil Pokemon of the Kalos region, Amora, it's actually revealed in the anime that Amora, as well as its evolution Aurorus, have a bit of a dark fate in the modern era, because according to the anime, these two Pokemon are not expected to live very long at all in the heat of the current climates. And it's actually outright stated in the Japanese version of the anime that Amora in particular will die if it gets too weak due to the heat. On a lighter note, however, no other Pokemon has the same type combination of Rock-Ice as Aurorus does or its pre-evolution Amara. When it comes to Sylveon, Sylveon made its debut into the main series anime in an episode titled Kindergarten Chaos, and believe it or not, this episode actually shares its name with an episode from the dubbed version of the Sailor Moon anime. Next up is Hawlucha, and Hawlucha is rather unique in that its signature move, Flying Press, is currently the only move that deals dual type damage, dealing both flying as well as fighting type damage. It's been noted that the Pokemon Dedenne resembles Raichu, not only because it's a Pikachu clone, but because it has the same body coloration. This connection actually goes a little bit further, however, because Dedenne's shiny form also has the same coloration as shiny Alolan Raichu. According to Carbink's Y Pokedex entry, it has slept underground for hundreds of millions of years since its birth. It's occasionally found during the excavation of caves. Now, what this Pokedex entry indirectly says about Carbink is that on any given occasion when you see a Carbink in the wild, you might actually be looking at a Carbink that is literally hundreds of millions of years old. I mean, just to give you a frame of reference, that actually dates back to the time when you could actually find Genesect in its original form before it was altered by Team Plasma. The Pokedex states numerous times that Gumi is the weakest Dragon-type Pokemon, but this is factually incorrect, as Gumi's base stat total of 300 is not only shared by a number of other Dragon types, but it is also over 50 points higher than Noibat's base stat total, who is another Dragon type introduced in the very same generation. According to Sligoo's Pokedex entry from Pokemon Sun, it has trouble drawing a line between friends and food. It will calmly try to melt and eat even those it gets along well with. Excuse me, I need an adult. Adult, please, thank you. Save me from the dragon snail monster, please. Interestingly, its evolution Goodra is the only pseudo-legendary Pokemon that only has one type, that being the pure Dragon type. However, Goodra is also the only pseudo-legendary Pokemon to also have its own signature ability in Gooey, which it is able to get as its hidden ability. According to Klefki's Ultra Moon Dex entry, long ago it lived in mines, but once the minerals that make up its diet became scarcer, Klefki began appearing in human settlements. Now, the interesting thing I find about this Pokedex entry is that it basically shows that Klefki is not a quote-unquote modern Pokemon as it is made out to appear, and it's not just all about stealing people's keys, as it only really does so because its diet was wiped out from long ago for some unexplained reasons, actually rather tragic. Coming up next is Phantump, and Phantump belongs amongst the group of Pokemon who are required to be traded in order to evolve. However, Phantump is the only one among those Pokemon whose evolved form can also be caught in the wild in the same generation in which it itself was also introduced. Speaking of its evolution, Trevenant as well as its pre-evolution Phantump both have a signature move in the form of Forest's Curse, and Forest's Curse upon being used on an opponent actually gives that opponent the grass type even if the opponent already has 2 types, meaning that opponent will now have 3 types in addition to the grass type. With that being said, if an opposing Pokemon that is affected by Forest's Curse actually has the Dragon Ice type, such as Kyurem for instance, that Pokemon will now become weak to 10 different types, which is the most of any possible type combination. Pumpkaboo, as well as its evolution Gourgeist, also have a signature move in the form of Trick or Treat, and Trick or Treat is very similar to Forest's Curse in that it gives the opposing Pokemon the Ghost type instead of the Grass type. With this being said, a number of different situations arise from this, where if you use Trick or Treat on a pure Normal type or a normal Psychic type Pokemon, this is the only way for an opposing Pokemon to have its only weakness be the Dark type. And in addition to this, if Trick or Treat is used on a normal Fairy type Pokemon, this is the only way for a Pokemon to have its only weakness be the Steel type. Speaking of Pumpkaboo and its evolution, Jesse's Pumpkaboo in the anime evolved into Gourgeist in the episode A Festival Trade, A Festival Farewell, and an ironic thing about this episode is that James in the episode is dressed up in a Gourgeist costume. However, even though this is the case, once he actually lays eyes on a real Gourgeist, he is unable to actually recognize it. And since we're speaking about irony here, an ironic thing about the Ice-type Pokemon Bergmite is that it actually debuted into the Pokemon trading card game in the Flash Fire expansion. Now, its evolution Avalugg has actually become the butt of a lot of people's jokes, as it has become known in the fan community as the coffee table Pokemon. However, its possible inspiration is going to blow all of those jokes out of the water, because in Avalugg's Pokedex entries, it makes a note of how Avalugg looks like an aircraft carrier, and this utterance could be a possible reference to Project Habakkuk, which was a plan created by the Allies in World War II to build an aircraft carrier from the solution Pykrete, which was a combination of wood pulp and ice, which of course Avalugg's body is made out of. Moving on to Noibat, Noibat's German name, FM, is the only Pokemon name using the Latin alphabet that does not start with a capital letter, and it's also one of the few that also has a hyphen. An interesting thing about Noibat as well as its evolution Noivern is that these two Pokemon are the only dual flying type Pokemon to have the flying type as their primary type. Now we're moving into the legendary Pokemon with Xerneas, and when it comes to Xerneas as well as with Yveltal, they were both designed by Ken Sugimori and Yusuke Omura, which is rather interesting because usually the legendary Pokemon are designed by Sugimori and Sugimori alone. However, in this situation when Sugimori was designing Xerneas and Yveltal, he encountered a bit of artist's block, so for the very first time he handed the design of the legendary Pokemon and the job to design them over to another person in Yusuke Omura, who continued the designs until Sugimori was able to get out of his artist's block and come back and finish the designs. And even though that fact applied to both Xerneas and Yveltal, I still have another fact about Yveltal in particular, as Yveltal is rather unique amongst the members of its legendary trio because it is the only member of its legendary trio to not have an alternate form, where Xerneas has its active mode and its neutral mode, and of course Zygarde has its multitude of forms as well. In addition to its multitude of different forms, Zygarde also has a multitude of signature moves. In fact, it is the Pokemon with more signature moves than any other Pokemon currently in existence, with 4 in total. Now we get into the mythical Pokemon of the Kalos region with Diancie, and Diancie is the only Pokemon currently who was introduced in Generation 6 who is capable of Mega Evolving, and Diancie is also currently the only mythical Pokemon who is able to Mega Evolve as well, and this is rather fitting because Diancie itself is basically more or less a Mega Carbink, as its Pokedex entries state that it is a mutated form of a Carbink. Moving on to Hoopa, Hoopa is currently the only Pokemon to have more than one species category, as it is known as either the Mischief Pokemon or the Gin Pokemon depending on the form that it takes. And last but not least, we have Volcanion, and did I say last but not least because I actually meant least, because the Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel movie is actually the lowest grossing Pokemon movie in Japan to this date, and rather coincidentally, this is also currently the last movie to take place within the continuity of the main series anime. And there we have it, everybody. That is officially 72 facts about every single Kalos Pokemon. Now, even though Kalos does have the smallest Pokedex of any single region to date, it is absolutely jam-packed with amazing Pokemon, and I personally had a blast putting this together because, as I've said before on the channel, the Kalos Pokedex is my personal favorite, so I hope you guys enjoyed learning about it as much as I did. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know which one of these facts you enjoyed the most, or if you have another one that you would like to share. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and if you enjoy Pokemon music and remixes, consider following me on Spotify as well, because your follow and you listening there directly supports the channel here. With all that being said though, I will be back on Saturday for another video, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live, and once again, I love you guys as always, and I will smell you guys later.